This happened a few years ago. During my sophomore year of college, I suddenly had to switch dorms due to housing and residence life at my university being completely awful to me and a few other student workers. Long story short, I lost my job and I actually had to move within a day. My parents came 5 states away and made a huge fuss in the housing office so that I was able to get more moving time. This is really important later in the story. I used to go on Instagram Live a lot because I'm a music minor and practicing in front of an audience really helps me improve my piano skills. I guess Instagram had begun offering the feature of showing stories and lives on the Explore page, so I ended up getting a lot of views and comments from strangers. Nothing too bad. It was usually just song requests that I couldn't fulfill because I had a strict repertoire from my piano professor or hard eyes from strangers. I used to really enjoy the lives until I got a comment from a man who knew exactly the location of my university. I never wore any kind of school attire during my lives or publicized my location on Instagram, so it made me a little nervous. I stopped doing lives after that for a while, getting caught up in regular work and figured everything was fine. The guy sent me a few messages offering to take me on a date. A quick scan of his profile made it clear that he was at least 50 years old. He worked as a laborer for the city my university is located near. He asked me several times a day what buildings my classes were in, if I liked the cafeteria, etc., until I finally got scared and decided to block him. However, before I blocked him, I called him a pervert and a freaking weirdo for being so interested in me when I was so much younger than him, and for also trying to find me when I was trying to go to class. A few weeks later, after I'd forgotten about his weird messages, I got a message from him saying something along the lines of, "I waited for you in front of your old dorm for hours, but you never showed. Did you go home for the weekend? You shouldn't be so rude to me next time, or else we won't have fun whenever we meet face to face." That message scared me more than I'd ever been scared in my life. One of my really close friends graduated from the university and began working as a campus police officer around the same time that this all happened. So I decided to go see her and see what I could do. Sadly, not much could really be done about it, but I definitely pulled back on my social media presence. The guy had followed me from 2 more Instagram accounts with different usernames, and I blocked all of them before he could even message me. Thankfully, since leaving after that spring semester, I haven't heard from him since. So to the creepy old guy from Instagram that wouldn't leave me alone, I really hope I don't hear from you ever again. When I was in the 8th to 10th grade, I was extremely involved in this small building server. The average age was probably about 15 to 17. And I joined a group of builders and Skyped with them every weekend for like hours. We all became close fast and we trusted each other, enough that we actually followed each other on Instagram. I became particularly close with one of the builders in my friend group named Peter. Peter was in the same grade as me and we ended up texting quite a lot. I had heard some rumors that Peter might have a crush on me, which he denied, which I kind of found laughable because, it was the internet, and I just brushed it off. Everything was fine for a while, until something began to feel really off whenever I talked to him. I was starting to constantly catch him telling these small lies. This really bothered me, so I figured it was time to distance myself from him and just stop talking to him altogether. Cut to a few months later of no contact, and Peter out of the blue sends me a text that he's going to be possibly transferring to my high school. He said he was doing this so he can get in-state tuition for college. Peter's plan was to somehow live completely alone and support himself while in high school. My stomach dropped when I read that text, and I just felt really off. I try to be calm, but also tell him that his plan is crazy. I tell him that it's oddly convenient that he chose my random suburb of all places. Peter just insists that his plan will work out and it's really just a coincidence that he's going to my high school. I'm trying to call Peter's bluff, hoping he's just screwing with me because I cut him off. Peter then says that he's already bought the plane tickets and he's going to stay in my town to go visit some high schools in the area. Fear washes over me. I begin to realize that Peter definitely has some really weird unhealthy attachment to me. Peter wasn't bluffing. To my horror, He posts a picture on Snapchat at the airport. Peter asked me to meet him up while he's there, but of course I decline. Later on, I see on his Snapchat story that he's actually taking a tour of my high school. He takes lots of videos and pictures, and probably hoping I can see it. Luckily for me, I'm actually stuck home with pneumonia. I spend the next few days totally on edge and totally afraid that he was going to ring my doorbell at any moment. Luckily, he wasn't smart enough to find where I live, and he flies home and doesn't even follow his plan. The most baffling part? None of my old group on the Minecraft server even thought he was doing anything creepy. I honestly felt like I was going crazy for even thinking this was weird. I thought that my rejection for this meetup would be the end of it, but about 2 years later, I had just committed to my dream college. I still stupidly followed Peter on social media because I wanted some kind of warning if he was coming to my area again. Once again, Peter did. I see him posing right in front of the library at my college with the caption saying, "Transferring here is definitely the move." Cut to a few months later and Peter finds out that I had a boyfriend now, and he directly contacts me for the first time in like 2 years. He starts asking me strange questions like, "Is he gonna protect you?" I shouldn't have answered, but for some reason I did. I finally blocked him, and out of fear, I decided to stop following him on social media. He hasn't tried to contact me since. I'm a 20-year-old girl, and at the time of this story, I was 15 years old. I had started to really grow on social media as a Twitch streamer / general personality. I used to be really into posting fitness and other progress pictures, along with my other selfies. I had a lot of dedicated followers and a lot of people that I didn't really know on social media, but I didn't really mind since it was part of my job now. Fast forward about 2 years and me and my current boyfriend at the time had just broken up. We were still on pretty good terms though. He sends me a text seemingly worried about some guy on Instagram who's asking for my nudes like insistingly. My heart dropped. The random guy, who I recognize as one of my usual followers, had sent my ex an entire gallery of photos of me. Not just a few pictures, but hundreds. Pictures that I deleted years ago, workout progress pictures which I had stopped posting for quite a while now, as well as selfies, videos, weird angles, stories, literally everything. Hundreds of photos of my underage self on his camera roll. I was absolutely petrified. I had to come to terms with this, and I eventually blocked him and just tried my best to move on from this. A few days later, after coming out to my followers about my stalker, some of my closest friends and admins on Discord had messaged me privately. Apparently someone was going into my Discord and posting some of the unflattering progress photos amongst many others with no context. It was humiliating, because like I said prior, I had to come to terms with the fact that I really wanted to be more modest and feel more comfortable with myself, and well, this was a really hard setback for me. It was really sickening, but that wasn't even the worst of it. A couple of months later, I decided to Google my username. That same guy had posted my images to various sexual websites, and among other things, even 4chan forums. The captions were things like, "Hot young Latina," and so on. I want you all to keep in mind that I was only about 15 to 16 in these photos. I was luckily able to have them removed, but it's still so terrifying to think how some people can grow so obsessed with you. Please be mindful of what you post on social media. The thing that scares me the most though is just how many of these people exist in secret that we don't even know about. That's a really scary thing to think about. This story took place a few years ago. Since so many people are using online dating, I thought that I would share this story. During one summer when I was in high school, I was swiping through Tinder looking for someone to hang out with. I matched with this guy who seemed pretty nice and he looked really good. Lots of shirtless photos, if you know what I mean. He was a counselor at a local high school in the metro area. We texted for a while and talked on the phone and then decided to grab brunch in the next weekend. I met him at the restaurant and we ended up having brunch with bottomless mimosas. He was nice and funny, and he really made me laugh a lot. I think that we both got a little tipsy. He said that he was going to go to a barbecue at his friend's house after the brunch, and he asked me if I wanted to go with him. He seemed pretty cool to me, and I was having a really good time with him, so I agreed. I had to walk my dog because I hadn't anticipated being out that long, so I told him I would meet him back at the restaurant in about 30 minutes. He said that he really wanted to meet my dog, and he asked if he could come walk the dog with me. I thought about it for a second, but my place was a total disaster, so I just told him no. I came back to the restaurant and we grabbed an Uber to his friend's house. There were a bunch of people there drinking and talking, and everyone was really nice. The barbecue situation was going on out back. We talked to some people, hung out, and then drank. He started to get kind of drunk and really handsy, so I told him I wanted a drink and walked into the kitchen for some space. A couple of minutes later, he comes into the kitchen and tries to kiss me. I kind of just smiled and just shrugged my way out of his grasp and told him I needed to go to the bathroom. I asked if he would grab me a drink and meet me outside in the backyard. When I left the restroom, I walked straight out the front door 2 blocks down and took a right. I grabbed an Uber home immediately. I started getting calls and texts from him, but I blocked him. He also tried to reach out over on social media, but I just blocked him on there as well. At this point, I pretty much totally forgot about him. Fast forward about 3 years now. I'm sitting on the couch chilling and reading through the local news on my phone. I scroll down a bit and I then see a picture of this guy's face. He had apparently been arrested for attacking women that he met on Tinder. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that I definitely dodged a bullet.
So back when all this Islamic State stuff was kicking off in Iraq and Syria, I remember a mate of mine sharing an Instagram account with me that was run by this group called the Peshmerga. They were like this militia made up of Kurdish fighters, ethnically distinct from Arabs but still Muslims. In spite of this, they were being prosecuted by those ISIS guys for some reason, so they were basically at war with them. They used to post all these combat videos, as well as pictures of themselves with captured ISIS equipment, weapons, ammunitions, vehicles, all sorts of stuff. They posted some pretty gnarly stuff, so I followed the account, and naturally their stuff would pop up in my timeline every so often when I was scrolling. So this one day, I see a picture of them with someone I figured was a captured ISIS guy. He was all bloody and looking pretty sorry for himself, but the caption of the photo was in Kurdish, so obviously I couldn't tell what it all said. Thank God for Google Translate, because although the translation wasn't perfect, they did actually have a Kurdish option, so I could get an idea of what it said. Some of the words must have either been spelled wrong or they were using Kurdish slang, because some of the words just wouldn't compute, but like I said, I did get an idea of what the captions to the photo said, and as much as those ISIS dudes were or are scumbags, what I read was highly disturbing. I can't remember what the post said verbatim, but the words that did get translated were stuff like vote, mercy, kill, and then like a number of hours. It didn't take a genius to work out what those Peshmerga guys were proposing. They wanted their Insta followers to decide if that captured prisoner was to live or die. And then, as you can imagine, pretty much all the replies were just one-word replies that could be translated into yes, kill, do it, and that sort of thing. Only a handful pleaded with them not to do it, giving reasons like, "You be no worse than they are. We're not barbarians," and other variations on that theme. I remember being really shocked because the time period they gave was only like 2 or 3 hours, and even though the post had only been up for like a half hour, there were literally hundreds of comments all telling them to kill the guy. I remember sharing the post with a mate of mine who'd shown me the account in the first place. We spent hours going back and forth on how messed up it was, whether or not the prisoner deserved to be killed given what his jihadist buddies were doing. I mean, they were taking slaves, bringing back legit open-air slave markets with weeping and wailing women and girls, not to mention killing literally hundreds of innocent people in these mass executions out in the deserts. But in the end, I suppose it didn't matter a jot what we thought about it because, as we're talking, My mate shares a post with one of the shocked, appalled emoji things. You know, the ones that are yellow but also kind of blue? It was a photograph. A photo of the same prisoner whose picture had been posted just a few hours previously. He was lying in the dusty dirt with this vacant look on his face, with a puddle of blood pooling under his body. They'd done it. They'd killed him. On the orders of the general Instagram-using public. It sent a chill through me. I mean, like I said, I've no doubt that the guy deserved what he got, but knowing it was done in such a savage way, put to a vote, then when passed, even the people who were supposedly the good guys could prove to just be as bloodthirsty and merciless as the monsters they were fighting. We can't really judge either. The Kurds were being exterminated out there. How would you react if your people were being murdered or sold into slavery? You'd want to fight back too, and ferociously at that. The posts were taken down and the account was banned not long after, thankfully. Obviously, Instagram couldn't have something like that on their platform, but as quickly as the admins would delete an account, a brand new one would pop up and post the same images and votes. It didn't just happen one time. I saw execution votes just like the first one I'd seen, posted time and time again. I don't think I've ever looked at people in quite the same way since. Like, I know all that stuff was half a world away, but I think we can all agree that at their core, people are the same all over. We can be kind, generous, compassionate, but we all have it in us to be cold, bloodthirsty, and monstrous too.
This started towards the end of my 8th grade year. Basically, my friend had this guy who was following her Instagram, and he would comment on all of her posts telling her how pretty she was. Now, that wasn't super weird, but we found it kind of creepy because this dude was obviously in his late 50s, and she was only 13. He also started messaging her every day. Not anything overly creepy, just mainly small talk at first. Eventually, he finds my page and starts commenting on it, but I don't post pictures of myself online much, and basically all of it was just doodles and pictures of my dog. Now, this guy's account also mainly consisted of art, and most of it was actually pretty good, so I didn't really mind him commenting on my art at first. Eventually, though, he also started messaging me and trying to talk to me as well. Now, I have pretty bad anxiety and I hate coming across as mean, so I wouldn't really respond with words unless he asked me a direct question. Mainly what I did was just send a heart or a smiley face. Stupid, I know. So this continues for a few weeks and I learned that this guy can randomly blow up. I learned this because I had responded to a message from him asking my age and I told him I was 13, and then I put my phone down because I had to do the dishes. When I came back to my phone, I had like 10 messages from him asking why I wasn't responding and also telling me that he was joking. I was super confused at first at what he could have sent that would have made me mad. Basically, he had responded about how both me and my friend looked like we were 18. I found that to be creepy, but I didn't want to confront him about it, so I told him it was fine and that I was just doing my chores. The conversation moved on, and I made an excuse to stop messaging him for the day. One really creepy thing he did was when I posted a picture of my grandma's dog, which is a corgi, and put the caption of how much I love that dog. He liked that photo, and then within a day or so later, he sends me a picture of a corgi that he drew for me. I thanked him for it, and then he asked me for my address so he could send it to me. I absolutely refused, but he kept asking me, telling me that it was a gift and that he wanted me to have it. I had to send a message explaining that it was a family rule and that I wasn't allowed to tell him my address. After that, he dropped it. Eventually, after a bunch of little creepy things, my friend finally blocked him, and so he started ranting about it to me, saying how she shouldn't be creeped out by him and he was just trying to be nice, and that if she had a problem with anything he was saying, she should have just told him. He basically continued on like that for the next few days. He then pointed out how he was following her backup account, and how he was going to start talking to her on that one. I immediately told my friend all about this, and she blocked him on her backup as well. I eventually stopped talking to him as well, and I also blocked him.
Jocelyn Khanna was born on March 14, 1990 in Anaheim, California, before being raised near Lake Elsinore. Jocelyn first started modeling for local magazines at the age of just 17 years old, but gained the majority of her fame when she was featured on the cover of Lowrider magazine. Jocelyn also featured in World Star Hip Hop's Valentine's Day special video, in Gerardo Ortiz's music video for his single Y Me Besa, as well as a number of other magazines and music videos. This fame led Jocelyn to launch her own swimwear brand, using her popularity on Instagram to sell her products to her whopping 13 million followers. Her Instagram is very similar to what you might expect from a so-called influencer, a collection of semi-naked pictures of herself, complete with several cataloging her extensive travels around the United States and Latin America, in a private jet no less, attending various modeling events in New York and Los Angeles. She was also famous for her rather rotund posterior, giving rise to her nickname of the Mexican Kim Kardashian. But Jocelyn apparently had the brains to complement her beauty, with her LinkedIn profile stating that she had studied microbiology at San Diego State University. She had smarts and good looks, with conservative estimates of her income suggesting she was making upwards of $100,000 from various sponsorships and swimwear sales. But for Jocelyn, it was simply not enough. So in December of 2020, Jocelyn booked herself an appointment with a plastic surgeon down in Colombia to undergo what has been referred to as a Brazilian butt lift. During so-called Brazilian butt lift procedures, fat is taken from various parts of the body and essentially molded into the buttocks to give them the appearance of being larger. The procedure has grown increasingly popular in the United States, fast becoming the most popular type of plastic surgery, according to 2015 statistics from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. The rate of buttock lifts procedures rose over 200% from 2000 to 2015, with the total number of surgeries rising from 1,356 to 4,767 procedures over the course of that time. Yet, injecting fat into the buttocks can lead to severe problems if done improperly, including fat embolism, a process in which fat enters the bloodstream and blocks a blood vessel. Jocelyn's butt lift was due to take place in early December, but around that same time, news of her tragic death seemed to emerge. The cause of death has not been confirmed by her family, but Instagram influencer Lyra Mercer was apparently privy to the reasons behind her demise, and tweeting out on December 7th, "OMG, Jocelyn Cano died in Colombia getting surgery. That's wild." A 3-hour live stream of what is to believe to be her funeral was shown on YouTube, which saw loved ones paying their respects to the young woman in a casket beside a large picture of her. Attendance was small and intimate, mainly due to the pandemic, but watching the live stream, we can see that Jocelyn's family was absolutely devastated by the news of her death, and that she is survived by 2 young children. The estimated death rate for Brazilian butt lifts is 1 in 3,000, according to plasticsurgery.com, and it seems likely that Jocelyn's death was a result of complications following the surgery, becoming one of the unlucky few unable to survive such a procedure. Others wonder why representatives for Cano's brand have not confirmed the news, with one follower complaining that, considering the brand is hers, at least it carries her name, y'all should make a statement. I mean, she had over 12 million followers after all. The lack of confirmation has only fueled the rumors that Jocelyn did indeed die as a result of the Brazilian butt lift procedure, and that those now in charge of her company feel that the way in which she died might damage her brand. After all, they too are profiting from the sense of vanity that has risen as a result of superficial Instagram influencer culture. Last year, an online news publication reported on a shocking rise in black market butt lifts, inspired in part by so-called Snapchat dysmorphia, the condition of being out of touch with one's own physique as a result of constant exposure to highly edited or modified bodies on social media. It's been widely reported that varieties of beauty-based social media have been extremely damaging to female mental health, putting unrealistic expectations on them to look or live in a particular way. But it seems that the same is true for their physical health too, with surgical shortcuts to certain body types having literally killed a handful of young women over the past few years. I think we can all agree that it is frankly terrifying that such pressures can be felt so deeply by women that they would choose to risk their lives to attain a certain societal standard of beauty. And that smart, successful people can be so heavily affected by what they see online that they opt for what are obviously dangerous surgical procedures. Jocelyn Cano didn't have to die. That much is clear. But the question is how many other young women will have to lose their lives before we learn to love what we're born with naturally, instead of pining after some unattainable standard, and how much blood is on our hands for allowing such a standard to exist in the first place.
So, a long time ago, I had a falling out with one of my friends who liked to cyber harass people she didn't like. Because I knew this, I took precautions on all of my social medias and added the two-step verification where it would send codes to your cell phone if someone tried to log in or change your password. Seems like a safe step, right? I never really thought about it any further until a few days ago. I get an SMS text from a random number that addressed me by my full first name. It freaked me out a little because the spelling of my first name is pretty uncommon from where I'm from. No big deal. Maybe it's just an old friend who changed phones. I gave the classic, "Who dis?" back at them, to which I received an even stranger text back. "Oh my goodness, it's you. Are you 18? I have something I want to cash app you." Well, that's weird, I thought to myself. Probably just some scam to hack my cash app. I said again, "Who is this?" I never received a text back from that number. No less than 5 minutes later, I get 3 calls and 2 spam voicemails from different and unrecognized phone numbers. Then I get a text telling me to pick up the phone and saying my name. Now, that's pretty alarming. I immediately took screenshots and I had my boyfriend call from his phone, but no luck. I blocked the number and I hoped that was it. Maybe about 30 minutes later, I get 5 phone calls from a new number and a new, even more alarming set of texts. "I'm a 40-year-old man and I'm in love with you. I will keep trying to reach you until you respond. I won't stop." I immediately blocked the number and then called my parents. Then within about 2 minutes, he made a new number and texted me again. "Wow, I just want to talk to you for 5 minutes. I'll even pay you, but after that, consider me gone." Again, I just blocked him. I alerted my boss, then the text stopped. After work, I filed a police report and bought a baseball bat. My first instinct was that it was a guy I recently worked with who had been recently fired for harassment. One of my friends/coworkers who is good with the tech staff changed his phone number and texted the number pretending to be me or Burner to get some more information out of him. It was a bit of a long conversation, so I'll sum it up by saying that this guy basically wanted to talk to me on the phone while he masturbated. He called me 26 times and got no answer, so he eventually stopped trying. We assumed that was the end of it. The next morning, I get a text from a new number yet again. He was claiming to be one of my friend's fathers. I started to freak out. Both my parents and my boyfriend were at work, so he sent his mom over to calm me down and stay with me while I was alone in my apartment. He called my phone and she answered it, and all he said in this super creepy raspy voice is, "Please," and then abruptly hung up. I was having a full-blown panic attack at this point. We called the police department and they had an officer come out to update my report. She was still texting the guy while the cop was there. Once she told him law enforcement had been contacted, his whole story completely changed. He said that he doesn't know me or anything about me. He doesn't even live near me and means no physical harm. He's just a lonely guy who got my phone number from Facebook and decided to harass me. I might remember this wrong, but I could have sworn I had my phone number set to private, but I know I still had it up there because of the two-step verification. I recently posted something on Facebook Market, so I'm assuming that's where he found me. I have since deleted that account and changed my phone number, and nothing else has happened. Posting this here is more or less a warning to anyone who has that two-step verification set up. Please double check and make sure that you have the most private settings as possible for everything. I'm not even going to set up all that stuff with my new phone number. I'm not going to risk giving it out anywhere online.